Okay, I'm going to call to order the Town Council's special meeting on April 7th, 2026. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, will the town clerk please call roll?
Councilmember O'Connor. Councilmember Pasquarelli. Councilmember Morello.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Bear. Councilmember Hobak.
Here.
And Mayor Mel.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
I'd like to add a discussion item to the agenda
Okay.
to discuss the timing, content, and format of the April 21st meeting that has been held to the community as an opportunity to discuss the town's potential sale of mineral rights.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll bring it back to council. I am worried about time to have that type of discussion. But maybe share a little bit.
Okay, yeah, well, I just, had a lot of input and a lot of people concerned about having the time to FaceTime with us to ask questions, and I know you answered a number of them during the state of the town. But we've been told we'll have a discussion at an open hearing. I guess that's the open hearing on the 21st. I'm not
I don't
clear
think
that?
it is, and I'll have to defer to our attorney. Actually,
So there won't be anything we'll be voting on that day?
no, I don't think there'll be anything we'll be voting on that day.
I don't believe so.
Okay. In any event, if that's the timing of it, whatever the timing is, I think council should discuss what it's gonna look like, the format and question and answer between the residents and us. We're gonna talk amongst ourselves first, or I just would like to have a little.
Yeah, I don't think we have those answers here tonight unless.
I don't have an update to share with the council. That's certainly a policy decision. Council could decide to have a conversation about anything so long as it's appropriately agendized. That would be a council prerogative.
Can we add it to the next agenda on the 14th? And then we can notice it and have that conversation.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, maybe we'll have more information at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't so much interested in exposing any content or anything, so much as just put that in. It's very blank on our advanced agenda.
I think we're
Yes.
we're kind of waiting for a little more information on some of the legal aspects before we figure out what we want to talk about. When I say you want to talk about on the 21st and how you want to do that.
Okay.
So maybe on the 14th, we'll have a little more information and then we can
Okay. And the
discuss.
sooner we can give the residents a heads up of what it's gonna look like, it'd be great too, so. All right, thank you.
Totally, and I said at our last meeting, you had said, you want to get information out there, I do too, so I'm working with what I have to set the agenda, and part of that is to get as much information out there as we can.
Okay.
All right, I'll see if there's a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second?
All right, motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Was that Bell and Morello? I can't tell from over here.
Bell had the first and Morello had the second. Okay, we'll move on to public comment.
Okay, we have 3 speakers. Did you want to read from the comments?
I don't even have my form, but anybody who's speaking tonight, just keep it professional, no booing, clapping, cheering. We have students watching sometimes, and everybody will get 3 minutes, and you'll get a warning about 20 seconds before your time's up. The timer is actually not working tonight, so our town clerk will do that manually.
Our first person is Anna Clark.
Hi, Anna Clark from District 2. I attended the State of the Town meeting last week, wanting to hear if Town Council has been working towards a proclamation of public safety to address residents' fears over ongoing ICE operations in this country. This was only mentioned briefly and brought up with the context of inclusivity. Inclusivity and diversity are extremely important, but I do think that the point of safety was missed, so I'm here to talk about that again. I don't enjoy coming here to share examples from my own family. These pale in comparison to what people of color are experiencing, but I hope they serve to illustrate the point. Recently, my mother called me to say that she would not be coming over to visit. She was afraid, and I asked why, and she replied simply, ICE. It was March 28th, a day of nationwide protests, and she feared increased ICE presence would be used as a retaliatory measure. She's a naturalized U.S. citizen. She speaks English with an accent. She drives a car with the sticker of a small Nordic nation on the bumper. And she worries that one day the police will pull her over, call DHS, she'd be detained, and her citizenship would be revoked. And some people laugh at this, but I ask you to consider what this is like for families of color right now. We've had many difficult conversations in our house about immigration, citizenship, and race over the last year. We're not naive, and we know that it's people of color that are being targeted. But she knows better than most what it's like to be a stranger in this country. NPR reported this last weekend that the aggressive immigration tactics we have seen are shifting towards quieter operations, relying heavily on local law enforcement. This is not comforting. My mother worries about me because I'm speaking out, but I'm able to do that because I have the privilege of my race. Even so, I carry my passport with me, just in case. We are not overreacting, we are paying attention, and I'm not waiting for the worst to happen to speak out for my neighbors. I would like my mom and all of our residents, especially those of color, to feel safe in Erie, and I want my mom to visit her grandkids without fear of being stopped by police. I want her to be able to go to Sweets with us to celebrate the last day of school, and to have breakfast at Lucille's, and to enjoy the farmer's market and pop-up garden center, Juneteenth to the 4th of July. I want our residents, workers, and visitors to know that they are supported and not targeted in this town. So I'm asking Town Council again to consider a proclamation of safety to show that our elected local leaders understands the fear and strain our community of color are under. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Laurel Hayes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Laurel. My work and my volunteering bring me to Erie regularly. As I mentioned last time I spoke, I like to acknowledge that I'm a white woman raised in a multiracial home, that my grandparents were in the Japanese American camps, and that I had the honor of working with genocide and Holocaust survivors. My experience doesn't supersede that of people of color. The reason for my testimony tonight is that I am deeply concerned surrounding an event that occurred at the State of the Town address and question and answer session. Unfortunately, I could not be there in person. Mr. Mayor, I know I sent it early on Monday. I'm not sure if you saw the email that I provided. My understanding was that the request was to elicit feedback from community members, particularly individuals that are members of marginalized identities, prior to sharing any public information regarding the initiative that you are developing for Erie is for Everyone. I want to be clear that I am greatly appreciative of being asked to that table, and I am sincerely disappointed that that information was shared. And the reason for that is that we were asked to maintain confidentiality and privacy so that an initiative could be developed. That was not upheld. The most concerning part is that when information was communicated, firstly, significant revision is needed, and Erie is for Everyone is a draft in process, and it is not the public safety request that has been made. And while there's room for continued improvement, my most significant concern is that when you mention that initiative, You provided the first and last name of a community member without their consent. As you are aware, that community member is a person of color. You linked their name with an initiative that none of the people you invited to the table have signed off on. As you are aware, there's a massive difference between actions that occurred at the State of the Town address and a person choosing to provide testimony to town council. In one instance, a person of color bravely stepped up to address the very real fears faced by themselves and other people of color in relation to ICE. In the other instance, an elected official violated their own request for privacy, releasing information with an unrealistic timeline in which something can be developed. And while that may not have been the intention,
20 seconds.
that causes a great deal of risk to a person of color and their child. I humbly request that you continue to take these issues seriously and that you not demonstrate that people of color and their voice doesn't matter when you inappropriately link it with an unapproved initiative. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And our last person is Shannon Milliken.
So I have a document, but I'd like it to wait to go out until after, so do I give it to you now or? All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Shannon Milliken. My pronouns are she, her. While I'm not an Erie resident, I have spent the last 10 weeks deeply invested in this community, using my privilege to voice the concerns of people of color in Erie and to shine light on the fears regarding ICE activity. Last week, my full name was shared publicly in a way that did not reflect actual conversations, so I'm naming myself tonight because at this point, the most strategic way to protect my safety is to be the one who speaks for me. Mr. Mayor, 5 days ago, you referenced me by name in a public meeting while sharing information that was not accurate. I understand that when I speak in this space, my name is part of public record, and that is not the issue. The issue is that I prepare carefully and extensively before I testify to ensure that I have appropriate protections in place because my safety is directly connected to that of an 8-year-old child of color, my daughter. I am intentional about how and when I identify myself, especially in sensitive contexts. When my name is used publicly without preparation or consent, it places both of us in a very vulnerable position. The issue is being publicly tied to a position I do not hold without any communication beforehand in a context where I had been asked to keep things contained. I respected that boundary, and you did not offer me the same professional courtesy. When that boundary was broken publicly, it placed me in a position I did not choose, one that could have been avoided had we continued our conversation before anything was said publicly. I also need to correct something that was stated. I am not in favor of an inclusivity proclamation as a substitute for a public safety proclamation. These are two different conversations. My focus has always been on public safety because that is what the families have asked me to bring forward. I support the values of equity, inclusion, and belonging. And when town council asked me to review the inclusivity proclamation, I agreed because I wanted to help ensure it did not unintentionally create more harm or confusion for families who are already vulnerable. My feedback has always been about impact, not intention and not opposition. Because we have not yet continued our conversation, I need to state publicly, I have never requested for an inclusivity proclamation, and I am not advocating for one. This is why last week's comments were so concerning. While I am honoring the request for containment, you spoke publicly about me, by name, and tied me to something I do not support. That choice reinforced the very patterns families of color have been naming for months, and that moment is not isolated. Incidences like this are exactly why families of color do not feel safe reaching out to the Erie Police Department or to town leadership. When communication is inconsistent or inaccurate, it deepens a long-standing belief that their concerns will not be handled with care, and that speaking up might actually increase their vulnerability. So tonight, I'm naming that harm, and I'm asking you to choose accountability, not defensiveness. Accountability is not punishment. Accountability is clarity, and it sounds like this. I shared something that wasn't accurate. I understand the impact that had. I will correct the record, and I will do better moving forward. Because of that, I have offered a draft proclamation, a proclamation acknowledging the concerns of communities of color and affirming public safety for all residents of town of Erie. I hope this public safety proclamation will be sponsored quickly and read aloud at the next town council meeting in 2 weeks on April 21st, so everyone in our community can hear it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I did not mean to confuse the two topics. I understand the difference of the two topics, and I understand the safety. And I'm sorry if that's the way it came off. It was unintentional. Okay, we're going to move on to our first order of business and last order of business for tonight, which is the interviews for the Planning Commissioner members. And so are these in the order as they're in the packet?
No.
No, okay.
I've got some over here. First person is Paul Leaf.
Paul Leaf?
Paul Leaf.
All right, we'll bring Paul in. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Once you get settled in there, we have a series of questions. First, I want to say thank you for applying to Planning Commission. We had 11 people that applied, and we've narrowed it down to, I think, 6. And so welcome tonight. Each council member is going to ask a question. I will not ask a question unless there's something that needs clarification at the end. Then our job tonight is to basically go through all the interviews and to actually vote and to make the motion to actually appoint the planning commissioners tonight.
Sounds good.
All right, you ready to get going?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right, sounds good. Well, I think I'll just start on this side and we'll work around to Councilmember Hoback, but Councilmember O'Connor, if you'll start us.
All right, sounds good. So based on the role and description of the role, what are your 3 major objectives or responsibilities you'd focus on as a planning commissioner?
Good. Thank you for the question. And I just want to start out by expressing some gratitude for the work that you do here for our town and for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I think I've looked at the work plan, I've looked at the community priorities, and I think those are all good priorities for us to focus on. They focus on infrastructure, including traffic and water, sustainability, and affordability. One thing that I would add is that I think there's a real opportunity for this commission to address in a proactive way some of the bigger picture issues around infrastructure. When you look at the purpose outlined in the UDC for the commission, it's really about capabilities, not to exceed the capabilities of infrastructure, services, roads, and that sort of thing. And I think one of the things that I'd like to advocate for is looking in a more holistic way in terms of both our capital priorities as well as coordinating efforts with other entities in the town government.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for being here. My question is, if there, just kind of curious, if there was a development or something that came before the Planning Commission recently that kind of piqued your interest in, I don't know if you can kind of just describe how the Planning Commission worked or didn't work in your opinion, or just kind of, what is your understanding of how the Planning Commission functions and relates to the council?
Okay.
So if there's a specific example, I'm afraid I don't want to get too specific for you, but if there's a specific example.
So I've been in planning all of my career. I think there's kind of an axiom that the process is as important or more important than the product. And so I think whatever the commission does has to focus on engagement and the process. To some degree, there's regulations that have to be followed in terms of the UDC, and I think I'm trying to think of some examples that I think are exemplary. I think for the most part, the Planning Commission has done a good job. However, I would suggest in my involvement with the Planning Office in Boulder, suggest that one of the things that we should be doing more of is questioning developers and getting developers to pay more of our infrastructure costs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate you, volunteering to, look to be on the Planning Commission. My question is, how would you approach a project that meets code but raises concerns around density, traffic, or infrastructure?
So that's a great question. Thank you for that. I think one has to look at what's the root cause of the concerns first. If the concerns are with the process, for example, people are surprised by something, then I think that indicates that maybe we should take some time, pause, and consider this further with more public comment. Sometimes concerns can be addressed by having staff work with the applicant to attach additional conditions, and I think that's something that we should always be considering. And then at the end of the day, there are regulatory requirements that have to be met, and I don't think the commission should expose the town to liability by not following those. So I think compliance with what's clearly regulatory is an important consideration at the end of the day. That said, I think it's important for the commission to be able to be transparent and also communicate the reasons for decisions that are made.
Thanks.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
So, are you familiar with quasi-judicial review and what the role of the Planning Commission is in that process, and what is required of that process?
Yes. So in my roles as the campus architect for the Colorado School of Mines and CU Boulder, I worked very closely with the planning directors for both of those communities as we implemented campus plans and executed them. In fact, when I was campus architect at CU Boulder, we were doing a campus plan at the same time the city was doing a comprehensive plan. I worked very closely with the director of planning at that point, and he then hired me to work on planning staff for the city of Boulder. So I know municipal codes kind of from both sides of the equation. One of the things that excites me, and I didn't mention this in my opening remarks, is we have this great vision for what we want this town to be with a comprehensive plan, and it's really the requirements, the nuts and bolts of the UDC that's going to really tell developers how we achieve that vision. And so I think the work that's being done this next year to really start to update the UDC is going to be really important for helping us achieve the vision that's laid out in the comprehensive plan.
All right.
Thank you for being here. So what are some creative solutions for the issues that we face in town of Erie in respect to social equity?
Right. This, of course, is something that I think a lot of communities across the country are struggling with. And, in terms of the levers that we have on Planning Commission, there's certainly, density is certainly one of those, and variations on that. Lakewood is just, and Seattle have just made some tweaks to their code to go away from number of units per acre to a more flexible one that looks at accessible dwelling units. It looks at size of a dwelling versus lot size and those sorts of things. Other communities do have inclusivity requirements for future developments. requiring a certain amount be affordable housing, as well as impact fees on development that can be put towards affordable housing initiatives like land purchases and things like that. I think we have a great staff, and I think we ought to be taking advantage of the best practices from across the country and bringing those to consideration, and whether or not that's appropriate for Erie.
All right, Councilmember Hobart.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Two of the main activities that the Planning Commission gets involved in are the comprehensive plan and development opportunities,
Right.
Applications that come through. Those involve a lot of data that gets presented by staff. They understand the UDC and they're knee deep in it, and they gather a lot of data from the residents, especially on the comp plan. In a scenario where this is presented to you and you disagree with their conclusion, how would you give staff direction to go forward?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm a bit of a data nerd myself. I work for a national planning and design firm, and I lead a team that's focused on strategy and data analytics. So data is of great interest to me. I think, maybe part of our role is to really question. I think I have great respect for the work that staff does. When I was at CU, I had a planning staff. I worked on a planning staff for Boulder, and I know the hard work that they do. I think there's a proper venue for raising questions, I think part of my approach to this would be to develop a relationship with planning staff so that, not everything is necessarily, confrontational in a planning commission. I think there's a way to kind of make sure that I understand where they're coming from, understanding the context for the data and those sorts of things.
All right, and I probably should have started off on why did you apply from the Planning Commission? I'll ask everybody that just to get the conversation going.
Okay.
I think you've given a bit of that, but let's rewind the tape a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, give you that opportunity.
Is my background of interest, or you all have my application, so I don't need to review that too much? So I love planning because it has the ability to be impactful in people's lives, and I've dedicated my career to that. And I've lived here for 16 years, and I know that, and we've all experienced the tremendous growth that has happened here that's been rather unprecedented. And I think it's put us into a bit of a reactive mode. I think this is a great time for the town to kind of get ahead of that curve, be proactive about the infrastructure planning, understanding where we want to go with the remaining growth that we have capacity for. And I think I can bring some skill sets to bear. I have a very technical background. I'm focused on data. I think I have a big picture view, understanding holistically all the elements of a small town. I am perhaps more than anything a bridge builder. One of the things I'm really proud of is the work that I did building bridges between CU and the planning office in Boulder. And I'd love to bring some of that to the town where I live and where my family lives.
All right, wonderful. I think that's it for tonight. And
Okay.
yeah, very specific. We've got a number of people to get through, so
I understand.
We did have the background information though as well. And
Good.
yeah, thanks for coming out.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, and I'll take a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Lori Height, and she should be in shortly.
Question will paused here, so did one of the applicants go down?
Yes, one of the applicants did, yeah.
Yeah, okay, just one. I said there were 6 people on the list and 5
Yeah.
on the thing.
Yeah.
She's home sick. Oh, okay.
Great, she's on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in didn't hear the answer. Are we interviewing 6 or are we interviewing?
I'm dropped out.
Okay.
She's on 6, she
Oh,
didn't want to.
okay.
Hello, have
Hello,
a seat. How are you?
thank you, good. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome. I'll let you get settled in there. And as you're getting settled in, the process tonight is going to be each of the council members will ask you a specific question. I'll just get it going by just saying welcome and why did you apply for the planning commission?
Oh, well, I think I applied because I was a planner for almost 30 years for Thornton. And I retired last year. And really just kind of wanted to keep my hand in planning and also get to know my community a little bit better, contribute a little bit to Erie. I have been here about 5.5 years. So, yeah, just to kind of throw my hat into the ring.
Okay, great. We're just going to start with Councilmember O'Connor and we'll just work our way around. That's here.
Sounds good. Thank you for applying.
Oh.
What would you say is the town's biggest strength and its biggest weakness in the realm of planning and zoning?
I think one of the biggest strengths is that you have the Old Town along Brick Street. Coming from Thornton, that wasn't incorporated until the 50s. And it's really a town built around the automobile. Whereas Erie, you have that nice little downtown that was clearly built before the car was king. And it's really nice, walkable little downtown area. And I think that's a real asset to the town. To have those little shops right up on the street. And it's a much more pleasant environment for people that want to walk and enjoy, all the shops and things. I think it could be, developed a little bit more. I heard you talking at the state of the town about developing it more. I think that's a great idea. And what was the other half?
I'll just reread it. What would you say is the town's biggest strength and its biggest weakness in the realm of planning and zoning?
Well, I think maybe there isn't a lot of affordable housing here, not a whole lot of multifamily that I can see. So that sort of excludes a lot of people, especially with the prices nowadays for homes. So that would probably be the biggest weakness.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming out. I'm gonna try to do a better job of asking my question. I feel like I fumbled it last time, but is there an example of a development that the Planning Commission has reviewed or the Town Council has discussed that you felt like was a good example of how the Planning Commission relates to council? Or, if you don't have a specific example, how do you think the Planning Commission should work with council?
Well, I don't really have a specific example. I haven't really been following what they've been doing for very long. But I know they recommend to you guys for the most part. And so I think that's pretty typical of planning commissions. And can you repeat your question one more time for me?
How do you think that Planning Commission should relate to council, or how does that how do they help council make decisions?
Well, just through their recommendations, they can be a first set of eyes on plans and things like that for you guys.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate you applying for planning commission. My question is, how would you approach a project that meets code but raises concerns about density, traffic and infrastructure?
Well, if the property is zoned correctly and it meets code, I think it's hard for the planning commission to recommend denial of something like that. I think that's more council's purview to make those types of decisions based on, you know, what the citizens' concerns are.
Thank you.
Thank you. You kind of answered the question I was going to ask you, so no one, so I'll have to get on my feet here a little bit. Have you, in applying for this, have you reviewed the town's documents, the UBC and the comprehensive plan? And just as a former planner, what are your impressions of those documents? Do you see any areas of improvement or just kind of general summation of those?
I have reviewed them a little bit, mostly the UDC. The last 2 years in my previous job, I worked on our development code and we revised the whole thing. And so I was sort of looking at it through that lens of how are they similar, how are they different. And I think you guys did a pretty good job from what I could see. I think you might, there might be some places to make it a little more robust, but overall I was, you know, pleasantly surprised actually.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming. My question is, what are some creative solutions for the issues of town of Erie that we can address with social equity?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
What are some creative solutions that the town of Erie faces that we can solve or address with social equity?
Oh, okay, well, I think more multifamily housing, as I mentioned before, would be a good step in that direction. Another one that is near and dear to my heart is handicap parking. There's not as much as I think is needed in Erie. I know I'm sure it meets code, but I heard you talking at the State of the Town about possibly putting some along the street. I think that would be a good idea. And then I don't know how you get more diversity other than economic diversity into the town. But I think more economic diversity would probably bring more diverse people as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Two of the items that come before the planning commission are the comprehensive plan reviews and development application reviews, where a lot of data is presented and conclusions are drawn by town staff. In a scenario where you disagree with their conclusions, how would you proceed to give them direction to either move it forward or send it back for review?
To staff, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I think for the most part, staff are the experts. But if I disagreed with them about something, I would definitely bring up a discussion about it and ask them to look into, if I had other ideas, ask them to look into other options and other directions.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, well, that went pretty smoothly and quickly, so I don't have any other follow-up. I will just give you a minute if there's any last comments you'd like to make.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I tend to not be very verbose. I kind of get straight to the point. But, yeah, I do. The biggest reason I think that I'd like to be on the planning commission is really to contribute to the town and kind of give back a little bit. And that's something that has always been really important to me, is to try to leave the world a little bit better place than I found it. So.
All right, well, very good. We're going to be making our decision later tonight. as we get through all the applicants. And so you're welcome to hang out, or you can watch online, or staff will reach out for sure.
Yeah, I think I'll hang out.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So next is Tim Burns.
Fancy chair.
Welcome, Tim. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Good. You're familiar with the Planning Commission. We know that, but I will just ask kind of the intro question on why did you reapply? And then after you answer that and just kind of get into, your desire to continue on the Planning Commission, we'll just go around and each council member will ask one question. We'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in continuing with Planning Commission. I've been on the panel for 4 years. I think that we have done some pretty good work here. I still think that there's more to be done. I think even though the applications for specific land use are not flying in fast and furious, I think we're transitioning a bit as well, trying to get things updated with the EDC and with the comp plan, and I'm very interested in continuing working, I think, to try to get everything on the same page. So that's my biggest goal.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to start with Councilmember O'Connor and just kind of work our way around tonight.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for reapplying. Land use decisions often involve competing interests. How do you approach making decisions when there isn't a perfect answer?
Well, the one thing with our decisions, especially with an application, is that quasi-judicial kind of decision, and it's really based on objective criteria. So we're looking at guidance from the comp plan primarily, as well as more specific guidance from the UDC. Those are things that really, there's not a lot of leeway. Comp plan is more recommendations that we need to make, I guess, try to be consistent with. But UDC ultimately is what we do need to be to work with, and we're making that decision. It's probably less subjective, more objective. So even if I don't necessarily agree, this is the guidance that we have for the recommendation criteria. That's what I try to give.
Thank you.
Thanks for reapplying and for being here. My question is there a specific example of an application that's come through that is a good example in your estimation of how the Planning Commission can work with council?
With council, I think that we haven't had a lot in the past 4 years. I can say that we worked with council per se. It's more of like trying to make sure that not only when we give a recommendation for council, like in terms of the public hearings or ordinances, et cetera, that recommendations to modify, that we're trying to give as much information as possible that will help you guys make your decisions. So even if things are, like I referenced, like the UDC is a specific criteria for goals, I want to also make sure I'm putting on the record information that may help you guys when we're looking at, I specifically, my background is civil engineering. So I'm looking at constructability, looking at maintenance costs, things of that nature that may not be part of the yes or no recommendation, but it's information that can help you guys kind of be informed and make your decisions. We're trying to do the technical work, I think, so you guys can have more of the subjective discussions, especially when it comes to the well-being and safety for the town of Erie. So that's, I guess, generally what I try to work with in terms of helping council, since we don't necessarily work hand in hand with you guys.
Thanks.
Tim, thanks for being here tonight and reapplying and giving us some of your time. My question would be, how would you approach a project that meets code but raises concerns around density, traffic, and infrastructure?
And those are probably more common than I think most people think about. Again, that's where when I mentioned trying to talk about potential liabilities in an application that we're seeing, even if I personally may not support an application, but I see issues, want to make sure those are documented so that that information is out there. When there's questions of you talking about like density, if it's appropriate or not appropriate for the specific area that they are proposing to do this development, that needs to go on the record. If we're talking about issues of concern with foundational geological issues, try to make sure that's on the record as well. All these things need to be stated, even though they may not be something that I can say, I'm going to vote against this. Because if it's not part of that criteria, I still need to follow the UDC. I still need to follow the guidance from the comp plan, but other items of concern, darn sure want to make sure that that's documented somewhere. We don't want to put any more liability on the town than is already in the application, I guess, by maybe making a decision and putting it on record as we're doing this because of more subjective reasons. But the concerns, that we have with these things, pretty much, they're always going to be documented. So.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. I guess, having served 4 years, what would you say was, you felt like as a group, your biggest accomplishment was over those first 4 years, and what you mentioned earlier about there's more to do, what would you like to see done over the next term if you were?
I definitely think the biggest, we'll say, accomplishment was getting the comp plan revision. And I know that there's definitely some controversy with, in opinions and where we eventually came up with, but being part of that process, almost the entirety of my 4 years on the commission was hearing from staff, here's, this piece, here's this piece, and this piece, and this is how it's all coming together, and what we see, the vision for the town going forward 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, and being part of that process, I think, was interesting. I understand that, now we're looking at, we have this document and we want to refine it. We need to come back and let's revisit some of these things that were put in here, and does this still make sense for the long-term growth of the town? And if we work towards making adjustments or revisions to that's all part of this process. It is a dynamic document. It's not a thing carved in a rock that's just going to sit for 15 years. It does need to make sense and continue to make sense with the goals that everybody has for the town. So that is, I think, the biggest accomplishment, and also probably the biggest thing that we still need to continue working with going forward.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for reapplying. So my question is, what are some creative solutions for issues that the town of Erie faces that we can address with social equity?
I think that some of the issues that we're still looking at is I think the concept of growth. I'm not sure that people really have a good understanding of what is already entitled in this town. And I know we talked about it a little bit when at the conclusion of the comp plan development, there's only like 2 square miles in the town that's not entitled, either approved for development or in the process of. And so it's partly to help understand how that future growth is going to shape what happens with the town, and then looking at how we're going to manage that. and some of that is not necessarily directly from like the comp plan in terms of like the design growth, but it's how we're managing kind of infill projects, how we're trying to transition some of this from big new development areas to smaller things that are going to help the bigger goal of connectivity within the town, allowing people to be able to get around without cars is an issue, ideally, and continue like more diverse kind of growth of the town, commercial and things like this. So I think since I've been on the commission, it's been so focused on building, growth. And so we're just not going to see that much anymore. And so I think it is most likely, I think Planning Commission is kind of going to be more geared towards these things and making sure that these smaller pieces and they fit the bigger picture versus just looking at a big new development. So maybe that's the challenge I see.
Thank you.
Thank you for your 4 years you've already volunteered to the town. You're well versed with the comp plan and development applications. You've already touched on my question a little bit with Councilmember O'Connor when you mentioned objective criteria. Well, the criteria that you work towards are objective. The data is not always, it's subject to interpretation. So in a scenario either concocted or that you've already run up against where your interpretation of the data is different than staff or the developer, how do you direct them so that the project can move forward?
It's I think it's part of being one of 7 voices on the commission, whether as just a commissioner or as chair or vice chair, emphasize that we all have the same voice. And so if I have concerns, critiques on this, and not unusual to have say disagree with what the applicant is proposing or trying to point out something that this is a concern. I wouldn't want to build on this with, depending on this thing, point that out. Because what we can do is help guide staff into go back and can we take a look at this? Can you guys, before it moves on to the next phase, let's make sure that this is noted, versus a decision that we make isn't going to necessarily change that totally, approval or not, recommendation to not approve. It is going to be the information that we provide to help give staff that direction on, hey, you guys need to focus on these things. You guys need to look into what is this going to actually work the way that you're proposing with this into the next step. And so I feel like that is the best that I can do as an individual person on part of the panel. It's not necessarily my goal to try to convince everyone else of the same thing, but hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I can determine from this based on my experience or based on kind of how I'm reading this, and then we'll have that discussion. And so we'll see how the majority votes with this. And I think that we've had good discussions, especially regarding providing direction for staff to go look at this, recognizing that in almost all cases, except for I think like final site plan, we are not the last stop. We're not the final adjudicator of whether this is approved and goes forward. It's going to go to council. And so they will have that information, be prepared for those kind of questions here when it gets to you guys, or it gets to the next cycle of submission and review. Those kind of questions will get answered. And that's really what I want to see from staff and what I'm expecting to get from them. It's not so much, I don't expect that they're going to agree just because I said something here, but hey, this is why we see this. So, and they come back with that, and hopefully in the next step of the application, those questions are resolved or at least they're acknowledged in some way.
Great.
All right, look to see if you have any closing comments or remarks.
My only closing thing, as I said, I've had I appreciate the 4 years that I've had with the council. I've learned a heck of a lot with this, and I would love to be able to continue with this work. But I do think that the commission that we've had here the last couple of years has worked really well together, and I'm hoping that it continues to work with you guys, and especially potentially, I think back to Councilor Bear's question about working with town council, the potential to working towards the affordable housing ordinance and trying to see if we can reach some sort of kind of agreement on maybe how to proceed with that. That is something I would be very excited to work with. But we'll see how that goes.
All right, wonderful. Thanks. We are going to make our decisions tonight. You're welcome to hang out or.
I'll probably get out of here because it's kind of creepy to be looking around. So I appreciate it. Thank you for your guys' time.
Thank you.
Next is Sherry Booth.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. I get the hot seat.
All right, we'll let you get settled in, and first, thank you for reapplying for your service up to this point. Each council member is going to go around and just ask you a question, but I'll just kick it off on why did you reapply and why do you want to continue to be part of the planning commission?
Oh my gosh, we only have 10 or 15 minutes, right? So I'll keep my history to a minimum, but I've lived in Erie for 16 years. I joined the current commission in 2022, and a big part of that time was the comprehensive plan. So that is just got approved in 2024. So I think that there's still some work that we can do with the comprehensive plan to make sure that all of our planning is working around that. I think there's going to be some of the UDC aspects to get in sync with the comprehensive plan. So I think it's important to continue some of that work.
All right, sounds good. We'll start with Councilmember O'Connor.
Okay.
Thank you for reapplying. In reference to growth and planning, what are the biggest safety concerns for the town, in your opinion?
I think from a community standpoint, you're gonna hear a lot of concerns around the traffic, getting in and out, and some of that connectivity. I think oil and gas is always a big conversation in our applications. So I think I would highlight those two.
Thank you.
Can you give us an example? Well, first of all, thank you for being here tonight and reapplying. But can you give us an example of an application that comes to mind that was a good example of how planning commission and the work that you guys do and the recommendations you make work well with council, or conversely, didn't work well with council?
Yes. So I think that one of the things that I'm enjoying a lot about Planning Commission, especially probably over the last year, is really recognizing everyone's strengths and their expertise that they bring to the table. By day, I'm a banker. So I don't have the engineering background. And I think that we've all kind of found our little niche within the Planning Commission on some of those questions that we're asking. So it's almost like you can guarantee that I might ask this of every applicant, and another commissioner might ask, something more engineering related to the applicant. So I feel like we are trying to do our very, very best to vet these applications before they reach you. And I think that we're even getting more solid in our approach with the community input, making sure that they feel like their concerns are being addressed. And I have to say, I think that we also have some really good developers that come in and do some of their applications. I think that they have kind of come accustomed to what is our standards and our expectations. And I think that some of them go above and beyond what they have to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks for coming in and reapplying.
Yes.
And giving us some of your time. So my question is, how would you approach a project that meets code but raises concerns around density, traffic, and infrastructure?
Well, I think that all of those standards are laid out for us. And I think that we have to give compliments to the staff. I think that they do a lot of that vetting for us to make sure that when an applicant comes to us, all of that is vetted and that they are certainly meeting all of the criteria that we have set forth in our codes. So I would rely on that expertise from the staff and ensuring that that's all been addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Sure.
You mentioned in your opening remarks that a lot of the UDC items are gonna be addressed on this. Is there anything specifically within that you would wanna see the planning commission accomplish as a group?
Oh my gosh, that's assuming that I have all of that memorized
Okay.
and can call out what hasn't been codified yet. No, I think all of it is equally important to bring it up to speed. I think it can at times create some confusion when those items aren't in sync and we're trying to remember, what applies today versus what hasn't been codified. So I think a lot of it is equally as important to bring up to date.
Sure. Okay.
Hi, thanks for reapplying. And my question is, what are some creative solutions for the issues of town of Erie that we can address with social
With social
equity?
equity. I think that another, very popular topic in the town of Erie is the affordable housing. And making sure that we are creative in our ways that we can open the door to that. So I know that it relies a lot on some of the state legislator and seeing what they're going to pass down for us as far as options that we can, instill into the town of Erie. But I think a lot of that infill development that we're going to be looking at is going to provide some of that additional opportunity to address some of those needs. And that will certainly, make everyone feel welcome and included into the town of Erie.
Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to continue to serve the community. When a presentation comes before you, comp plan or a development application, there's obviously a lot of data behind it, and you apply that to the UDC and figure out how to go forward. In a presentation that your conclusion, the data can be interpreted, and if your interpretation is different than the developer or town staff, how do you give guidance to town staff to move forward, or the developer?
I think that the Roberts Rule kind of, speaks to a little bit of how we can have that decorum in a meeting. The overall guidance is that it gives everybody a voice in that process, but the majority always wins. But I would also kind of say to you that the expertise of the staff, I think that they're very good about, again, fully vetting most of those applications that come to us. But I think as a commission, we ask some really good questions based on, some of the feedback from residents. And I think that the staff, we've created that relationship with the staff and presenters that they allow us to ask some of those deeper questions in order for us to make a more informed, well decision.
Great, thank you. Right, Sherry, any closing remarks?
No, I think I would also just like to thank all of you. I know that you guys are at this every single week. And you put a lot of time and effort into this, so I also reciprocate my appreciation to you guys for serving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are gonna be making the decision tonight, so you're welcome to hang out, or I'm sure staff will reach out, or it's also being live streamed.
Okay, all right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, the old guard isn't too concerned.
Welcome.
Zoom.
This is
Yep.
it.
Nice.
You want me to share a maybe?
Thank you. If you want.
All right, well, welcome tonight, and thank you for applying to be on the Planning Commission. We're gonna go around and each council member will ask you one question, but I'll just get it started by, why did you apply for the Planning Commission?
So, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Alex Schatz. I applied, having been in Erie for about 11 years. I am a technical professional, landscape architect, attorney, have worked in land development more or less my entire career. And at that 10-year mark or so, I have kind of come to the realization I understand what's going on in town, very interested in contributing what I can contribute, which is helping to deliver process, and in some areas where I've seen the need to maybe develop a little bit better record in the process. So there were some land use cases around me that prompted me to start paying attention. Short answer.
Okay, yeah, well, great, we'll start with Councilmember O'Connor.
Thank you. Thank you for applying.
Sure.
What do you see as the most pressing land use or development issues in Erie?
So I think I answered that one on my application, so I hope I don't contradict myself here. But obviously, we're in transition, both inside city limits and outside. A lot of forces going on at once, where commercial isn't the cash cow it used to be for municipalities. We need to, obviously struggle with what keeps a balanced economy and a revenue base for the town. That's more town council necessarily than planning commission. On the planning commission, I think there's a lot of legislative imperatives that the state is passing down that need to be sort of carefully managed. Obviously, we have the affordable housing statute that may be extended a year in terms of implementation if you're paying attention. But wildfire, I know, has also been mandated at the town and municipal level. So I would say reckoning with outside forces that are really changing the way that land use dynamics work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for applying and being willing to volunteer for the town. You mentioned land use cases around you that prompted you to get involved. I think I remember seeing your name in my inbox during the 111th Arapahoe shindig thing. So my question is about is there an example that you can give of how planning commission, an application that came before planning commission for review, and the recommendations I gave to council worked well, or conversely didn't work well? Or if you don't want to talk about a specific example, is just how does planning commission relate to council?
I think I'd like to answer both those if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because for those who were on the council, yes, I did speak on the 111th Arapahoe application. In that case, that would be an example of it didn't really work to have a cursory staff review of adequate infrastructure. That is one of the criteria for that rezoning case. And as it turns out, the stormwater infrastructure was not sufficient. That was a distinct impression that I had and had developed over time in that area, because we have stormwater infrastructure getting inundated to this day. But again, it relates to those criteria that there's a fact-finding mission with Planning Commission. We help support staff, bolster that record, not contradict. But I think in that case, that was an example of Planning Commission can help by asking questions and elaborating the record. The second question you asked was, I'm sorry, because I do want to quickly answer it. please.
How can planning commission effectively relate to council?
Well, I think everyone has to have a good idea what hat they're wearing. So I do wear a lot of different hats in my career. I have gotten pretty good at it. Planning Commission is an advisory body. In some special use cases and maybe site plans are final at the Planning Commission, but I think being an advisory board, policy implementation and policy direction, while relevant to, say, comp plan review, is really not the current planning case issue. With that, we are trying to improve the fact finding, the record, and also craft conditions that I think bring into focus any sort of controversy or deficiency so that the council can make that final decision. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight and putting in the time and effort for applying for the planning commission. My question is, how would you approach a project that meets code but raises concerns about density, infrastructure, and traffic?
So that's a great actual tag on to the last question, which is, how do these things relate? Because I do think Planning Commission is where you want the public to come to express those concerns. If the public doesn't express those concerns, that's a special kind of case where you're looking at your staff and saying, can we maybe table this? If it's a case where it's really been looked at and it's minutia that will help, I think we are crafting conditions. I think that's fundamentally where we can bring those things into focus and, density, infrastructure. Perhaps it is a condition that narrows the band of density, or with infrastructure, it defines better the sequence of how things will proceed. It's not to block the case necessarily, if that's helpful to the answer. I think it really is to look at how do you get to yes? Because that is the goal, is to look at these within the criteria and say, if it can reach it, and a condition is that bridge when there's concerns, let's figure out what that is.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. You've lived here for a number of years. What do you see as the biggest struggle that Erie will face over the next 5 to 10 years?
Right now, I think it's easy to say water, but that's really, I give that to you guys. Planning Commission's not gonna be dealing with that. There are a lot of strains going on, and transportation infrastructure as well. A lot of the patterns that sort of defined planning thinking in the past are changing. But I do think it's the balance. Back to what I said on my application, or whatever you call the questionnaire, I really don't think that, even though Erie's been very effective at recruiting retail, that traditional balance is still working. And you do see that developers want to bring other type of product online. So helping to facilitate that process where there is new product that's going to be a better mix of uses, I think is really where we're headed. And that's a challenge because sometimes code doesn't really accommodate it. You have to look at it and say, okay, we're leaning heavily here and we're kind of needing to make a record here, or we need to change our code, and maybe we ask staff to bring that to town council. So, I do think it's that the land use is changing with different patterns of consumption and work out there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for coming here. What are some creative solutions for issues that the town of Erie faces that we can address with social equity?
Boy, asking me to be creative, I might first say that I like the deliberative process. I do think when we have people in the audience that have ideas, When I was involved previously in some planning commission work, it was always make it into a park, right? There's this next door to me, it'd make a great park. Sometimes we have to craft that into, okay, well, there is an exaction for public land if this is to be developed or something like that. In terms of social equity, I find that to be a very challenging question. I mean, I don't think it's irrelevant, but I can't answer you creatively right now. But thank you, good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. As a commissioner, town staff and developers will present you with numerous applications, projects with a lot of data behind them, data that can be interpreted and applied to the criteria. In a scenario where you disagree with the conclusions that they've drawn from the data, how do you direct staff and the developer to move forward?
So, Counselor, if I can ask you, disagree with the staff or disagree with the applicant?
Either one, or both.
Well, I think it's very good to define these differences of interpretation. And that alone is sometimes the challenge, is saying, okay, we're actually talking about the same thing with two different interpretations rather than talking past each other. So I think that's the first part of it, is define what it is that needs interpretation. I doubt that a planning commissioner is the place to resolve that. So when it is critical to our criteria, that is a procedural issue. And it probably requires us to ask staff to work more with the applicant. Potentially, there are cases where the planning commission can resolve it, but those need to be very clear. And I would suspect that most of the time, it is a pause, and it could be within the span of the meeting, where you say, look, this doesn't square up. You take a recess, the applicant and the staff are able to come to a conclusion, and it's one that resolves it. But if it is not resolvable within the span of a meeting, that's table the case and bring it back when someone has an interpretation that can be agreed upon. So.
Okay, that's
yeah,
great. Thank you.
All right, we've gone through our questions. I'll just see if there's any closing remarks you'd like to make.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, I've been in town for quite a few years now, and I'm excited to be a part of hopefully the future of what we're doing as a town together. So.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. We're going to make our decision here shortly.
Okay.
You're welcome to hang out, stream it live, whatever you'd like to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I had originally planned to break here, but I think we're moving quicker than what I had originally thought, so I think we keep going unless anybody needs a quick break. Seeing none, we'll do that. We each have a paper ballot in front of us. The way this will work is that we basically vote on the top three. Debbie will add them up, and if the top three is just a clean cut, then those will be our three. If there's a tie, then that'll come back to us and we'll vote again on whatever the tie is, to get us to the top three. Would anybody like to share any of their thoughts on what they heard? And
Process question really quick.
Sure.
Is it like ranked choice voting where like one is
Equal vote.
So you can just put
Yeah.
check?
Yes.
Okay.
Check.
Sorry.
I just want to say, I think some quality candidates to consider here. So I appreciate all of the residents who came out and applied for this position, reapplied for these positions, and thank you for your time and stepping up.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think the expertise, the passion of the candidates has been great. So it makes it tough for us, which is a good thing.
It's definitely a good problem to have. Other thoughts, comments?
Just thank you for everyone for coming out. Luckily we got reduced to 5 already, so but we have to go down to 3. And unfortunately, there's going to be some qualified people that don't get selected, but I hope for those that don't, if other positions with the town come up, I mean, just everybody that interviewed tonight, you can tell how much they care about the community, and this is what we need. So, yeah, thanks everyone for applying.
All right, well put. All right, I'm not seeing any other comments. I'm just gonna say thank you again. I think we had 11 originally, is that right? 11 originally, narrowed it to 6. One dropped out, and so we interviewed 5. That's what we're voting on tonight. All right, with that, let's do our votes, and then we'll give them over to Debbie.
Brian, I left you over there, I'll take it.
I think so. I don't know. Well, no sooner.
I sent that in, it just was on, I sent that in, but on Friday. That's why it didn't appear on our screen. Probably here.
Resolution 2607.
Some management consultants, and you should probably change careers every 10 years. Yeah, just do something that makes it up. It's like that. Keep people.
We have 3?
Okay, go for it.
Alex Schatz.
Necessary evil.
Jerry Booth. Paul Leaf.
All right, let me bring up the resolution. So I'll see if there's a motion to approve Resolution 26070 with Alex Schultz, Sherry Booth, and Paul Leaf as our new planning commissioner members.
So move.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right, we have the appointments. Thank you all, and thank our clerk for adding everything up and getting us to where we're at. With that, I will adjourn the meeting.
Good job.